Ka tangi te titi, ka tangi te kaka, ka tangi hoki a hao ti he Māori ora. Ina mana, ina reo, a raraka te rama tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Tēnei te raru e tumaru o ka mana whenua, ka te māmoe waitaha kaitahu, no mai haramai tauti mai. I stand here beneath the cloak of the people of this place, ka te māmoe waitaha kaitahu, and welcome you here to the University of Otago. Ina mate haere hoki atu mā ki te pō. Let us remember those that have passed. Ki te whare tūnei, tēnā koe, tū tonu. And to the house that stands here, may you stand forever and welcome. Ko waiao, no o te poti ahau, ko katarani te iwi, ko Ngāti Scarfi te hapu, he kaimai ahau te wharewānanga o tākou, ko Richard Blakey tākawingawa. So I'm Richard Blakey, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research and Enterprise here at the University of Otago, Scottish by heritage, but Ngāti Scarfi, I'm a firm member of the university since my student days, and I stand here to welcome you on behalf of the university to this inaugural professorial lecture, where we celebrate the achievements of Professor Konrad Richter in achieving professorial status. It is traditional to welcome everyone here. Welcome to those members of our university community from Otapoti Dunedin, those from our other campuses, particularly from Invercargill at this session, members of the public from Dunedin, Invercargill and other places locally, those from wider afield, those that are joining us online from the whole way far, from the Four Winds. And we do have, I understand, people from all continents of the world just about in attendance today. So it's great to see members of the public come up from Invercargill, I understand, to support Konrad today. Konrad says he is only 75% nervous today, or he's one of the members of the staff that's 70%. So it's great to see comfortable and familiar faces, I'm sure, for Konrad. But I do understand online there are some very special guests, and I'd like to give you a shout out. Paul Darlington from Melbourne, Laura from Madrid, Cora and Paul Henry, Luisa and Emilia from Heidelberg in Switzerland. We have professors from Konrad's network, Martin Hauer Jensen and Cynthia from Santa Fe, Oyume Wingo from New York, Theo Wedel from Kiel, Ulrich Wedding and Winifred Meissner from Jena, Stefan Rothsal from Erfurt in Germany, Dorothy Kern from Boston in Massachusetts, some doctor colleagues, Nicholas Otto from Halle in Germany with Walter Asperger, Murray Pfeiffer and Yen from Invercargill, Rodney and the Russ family from Christchurch and or Tasmania. So welcome, thrice welcome to everyone. This is a celebration, and it's an academic celebration, which is why those of us in the academic party put on a regalia and come out to join you, acknowledging this promotion to our highest academic status in the university. Professorial appointment or promotion is something we take very seriously. We have special committees that assess promotions. We use international referees to ensure that standards are met at the level expected from the top universities internationally. And we require multiple things. We require excellence, of course. We require sustained excellence. But in particular, we look for leadership. And leadership and excellence in the areas of teaching, research and service. And we value each of those as much as the other, and that forms the academic triangle that we look to find someone who fulfills the characteristics that we expect of a professor in those three areas. And in Konrad, as we will hear tonight, we have a clinical academic who has met those standards very, very admirably, particularly in a significant role in clinical teaching in academia, where I think his own words himself is that teaching is great because it's learning twice. And I can reflect on that. Until you teach something, you truly don't understand it. And then teaching again and again reinforces your own learning. He, as well as an active practitioner, a researcher, and a university leader in an important satellite campus for us. Professor Baxter will give us a more detailed introduction to his career to date. But what I admire in some of the overview that Konrad has provided is a statement that for many people, particularly those with professional roles as well as academic roles, that academic triangle extends to a multi-point polygon. We might say in Dunedin it could even be an octagon. And that extension of teaching, research and service into other areas of family life, professional life, hobbies and other parts of someone's rich and complex lives, as the number of vertices in those polygons grow, the interactions grow exponentially. So I think what we'll see tonight from Konrad is a highly proficient clinician, academic, researcher, family member, friend, colleague, and a well-rounded person that we are very, very proud to have as a member of our professoriate at the university. I would like to offer on behalf of the university our sincere congratulations for this promotion, but also given your professional area and how much your work will have touched the lives of many families, I would like to thank you personally and on behalf of the many families that your professional activities have helped, that we deeply appreciate the work that you do. So please join me as I ask Professor Baxter to come and give a more detailed introduction in offering our sincere congratulations to Professor Richter on this well-deserved promotion. Well done.
E ngā mana, e ngā waka, e ngā reo, e ngā karangatanga o te motu. Tēnā koutou, kia ora no tātou katoa. Kei te tuau, kei te mihi kia koutou, aha koa no haue whānau mai, haere mai. Ko waiau, ko tūtoko te mauka, ko makawhi o te awa, ko kaitahu ka te māmoi me waitaha o kuiwi, ko ka te maha ki te hapu no te tai pautini o te waipau na mua hau. Well, kia ora everyone. My name is Jo Baxter and I am the Dean of the Dunedin School of Medicine, and I feel hugely privileged to have been asked to introduce the wonderful Konrad Richter to his inaugural professorial lecture. And I follow on with greetings from Richard and the warmest wishes to Konrad, his whānau, friends and colleagues, and to all those who have come here today. And I have been really looking forward to this. And I have known Konrad for many years now. Before I became Dean, I had an Associate Dean role in the Dunedin School of Medicine, and Konrad would come up and drive up and we would be in the same meetings. And I was always just stunned by this person with immense energy turning up into these meetings and actually coming and being a huge and passionate advocate for Southland. And I was really acknowledged the value that Southland has had in Konrad's advocacy within the medical school, and we could not teach our curriculum, we could not do what we do if we didn't have Southland as part of our Dunedin School of Medicine whānau. So a huge acknowledgement there. So I have to say it's been difficult to come up with a brief summary because the many-faceted aspects of Konrad's career and wider life were part of the briefing material that I've got. So we know Konrad is a consultant general and laparoscopic colorectal surgeon, surgical oncologist and endoscopist. His surgical and academic career spans over 30 years, and including in his early training and years, he worked in Halle and Jena in Germany, and also undertook a research fellowship at the American Cancer Research Center in Arkansas in the US. Very fortunately for us as a university and for the Southland community, Konrad moved to Invercargill in 2007 to take up his clinical role. And so on top of his commitments over time as a very busy and committed surgeon in Southland, Konrad has been pivotal for us as a medical school in further developing and nurturing a small, and I would say now medium-sized, vibrant academic environment at Kew. He's been the Dunedin School of Medicine's Associate Dean for Southland for over 10 years, and every year we have over 250 medical students who have some time of their education in Southland annually, and Konrad has a really critical role in overseeing, ensuring that those students not only have a good education while they're there, but they are also well supported pastorally. We have a centre in Inaugural that Konrad was very also pivotal in supporting us getting up and running. So anyone who has met Konrad will know he is a very staunch and committed advocate for the community and has been purposeful in forming relationships between the hospital in Southland, our university, and with the community. Konrad's been instrumental in increasing the relationship between the community and has been running public lectures and forums, so very much a community person. His research has spanned from biomedical to clinical and included surgical oncology and palliative care research, and he has published and presented widely. Alongside this, you would think that was enough. There are also many other strings to Konrad's bow, including having been on expeditions to the Arctic, the Antarctic and the Pacific, fly fishing, hunting, diving, playing classical guitar and other endeavours I'm sure we may even hear more about. And I have no idea how he manages all these things, and we might get some insights this evening. So no doubt today's talk, Academic Surgery, A Journey, will provide us with some wonderful insights into Konrad's journey and some of the many facets to his rich and impactful academic, medical and community and family life. I'm greatly looking forward to this talk and once again wish to thank Konrad for being an amazing staff member of our school and colleague. So without further ado, I would like to ask Professor Konrad Richter to present his inaugural professorial lecture.
Tēnā tātou e te whānau na mihi nuhi e dō rangatirama. No te ana maaho akwa ko sāle te awa. E whakahoki a te rangi mari e ki aho. Ko Petersburg te monga. E korero ana ki nga tuku nā kau. E mihi ana ki nga tohu o nehe o Vaihopai. Ke Vaihopai e mihi ana aho. Ko Richter, ingoa whānau, ko Konrad, tōku ingoa. Whangaia, ka tupu, ka puawai. No reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you very much for your kind words. Joe and Richard, thank you all for coming, and the ones who are watching this live, including the ones from Germany who had to get up early, 12 hours earlier. I thought, in order to get you in the right mood, I had this clip from the ship, a Russian icebreaker, that has been bringing me to the Antarctic and the beautiful subantarctic islands often the last 11 years as a ship's doctor and zodiac drivers and lecturer. And a journey like this one is probably like going on an icebreaker through the roaring 40s and the furious 50s and the screaming 60s until you possibly get into the silent 70s. Here you see the Awa, my river, and the church I got married 35 years ago, and I'm still married, which is quite something for a surgeon. And just to give you in the right mood, going there is also history, lots of history that can be explored, and wildlife. And since it was a Russian icebreaker, мне не kavo bolje lubich yamchik near ganilo chatier, meaning horsemen, don't drive the horses too fast, I have nowhere to go, I have no one to love. Horsemen, don't drive the horses too fast. Just to get you in the right mood for this talk about the journey, which is always about the journey. Happiness is not about making it to the peak of the mountain, nor is it about climbing aimlessly around the mountain. Happiness is the experience of climbing toward the peak. But actually, is it about happiness anyway, or is it more about something else? If we would be just happy, it would be not what we wanted, really. It's more about human connection, how you can positively influence other lives. It's about also ups and downs. It's an emotional diversity. And it might be fulfillment what we are looking for. Fulfillment can be also downs. Now, you wonder whether academic surgery is fulfillment. I don't know. Let's find out. It is certainly the perfect balance, and I know there are quite a few surgeons here in the audience and also listening in Inaugural, between practical and cerebral. You must be interested in the intellectual challenges of the broad discipline of surgery. There are lots of pros. You are the main interpreter of translational surgical research. You contribute to society clinically and academically. You directly influence your peers, possibly, in allied research fields, if they would just listen sometimes. You might travel nationally and internationally, and you have rewarding national and international collaborations, and you have the ability to directly teach at all levels. There are cons, of course, and we all know this as surgeons. The long operating theater hours, we are on call, we are literally chronically sleep deprived, really, most of our surgical life. We should not forget this. And then the nights and the weekends are reserved for possibly research and writing papers, which might be declined, or funds that might be declined. Or you go to conferences, PhD supervisions, lectures, and then if you succeed to get something accepted, there's still a stiff competition of even more driven people and ambitious people who are also looking for certain ways to pursue their career. And yes, you miss out on family time, hobbies, and weekend. And yes, there is not really a lot of money involved either, which might drive people away. So that caused the Australian New Zealand Journal of Surgery to spend the whole journal to look into whether academic surgery has a future. There's a manpower crisis in academic surgery in Australia and New Zealand that urgently needs to be fixed if we were to continue to train students and young surgeons. What happens? You need, as a young surgeon, to develop your skills and perform without complication, to prove your capability. That takes time and effort. You have to prove yourself in front of your colleagues. And this alone can fill your day out without leaving much room for the main reason most people enter academic surgery, to explore scientific questions through research. That's one of my heroes, and I want to quote him at the beginning, and I will also quote him again at the end, is Rudolf Nissen. You might know the Nissen fund duplication, which is a solution for some of us with reflux, but not for all. The more often we do the Nissen, the less we really like it, but it's a great way to help people who are really miserable. And Nissen said that one who is incapable of enduring the hours of desperation is, in my view, unfit to become a surgeon. That is because the trust that the patient places in his surgeon, a trust that is unmatched in the history of human relationships, must be repaid by a strongly imprinted sense of responsibility. This is still valid. I don't know what the anesthetists think about this, but that's how we are taught and how we grow up. Nissen was a younger pupil of Sauerbruch in Berlin at the Charité being one of the leading surgical centers before World War I, and of course because Germany lost hopelessly 2 world wars, it wasn't anymore after World War II. But 1933, when Hitler came to power, he was asked to dismiss some of his Jewish colleagues, and he rather chose to leave his career and went to Istanbul. And later on, he went to Boston. And you might have seen this picture. And this picture was taken after Nissen operated on Albert Einstein in 1947. And when the reporters asked Einstein when he came out of the hospital, how are you doing? He told them, to Nissen my tummy and the world my tongue. That's how this picture happened. what Nissen did at the time was a perforated triple aneurysm, and he wrapped some cellophane around, as you do. And he lived another 7 years. So I started my medical school in 1984. You see, it's a year longer than others. Halle is the hometown of Friedrich Händel. I know the English claim him, but he was actually born in Halle. And we all know that's the marketplace, and he never wrote an opera or anything in Halle. He left it when he was young, 18, 19 years of age, but we still claim him as our son. And in those days, we had to write a medical diploma, which gave me the first chance to do research. So I was looking at thyroid glands, and we had was a clinical study, and it got my hands, and I got excited, and so much that I was asking for a year research after my 4th medical year. So I interrupted my 4th year. That was the first time that it happened at the Martin Luther University in Halle. And I spent 1 year in the lab operating on rats. We introduced Benz pyrene-induced sarcomas, and we were looking where the cell is coming from that finally ends up in an MFH. In those days, it was called malignant fibrous histiocytoma. And it gave me the first 2 publications. And it got excited and hooked. And these I just found them while preparing this talk. As I said, the preparation of this journey was actually a journey in itself. And you see here the cysts, the oil cysts that we know in 120 days will be sarcomas. We knew where the sarcoma will happen, and we could look in those days at ATPase. And the lower 2 pictures are anti-factor VIII, immunohistochemistry, and anti-desmine stainings. You had to be quick because the staining activity disappeared. And the theory was that the pluripotent perivascular cell is actually the progenitor cell that has the capacity to turn into other cells. And I gave my first talk, and I found this while preparing this in the Czech Republic in 1989. Mind you, we grew up in East Germany. In those days, that was the West for us, East Germany and the Czech Republic. But it was an international symposium. That was the paper I presented, and I memorized this talk in English, and I don't think anybody understood this in those days. With my slight German accent, which over time hasn't really improved much, as you can hear. And Professorial, who was my first mentor, who taught me the basics of research and science over 1 year. In those days, we would do autopsies in the morning. The clinicians would come once a week, and we would discuss the case from all perspectives, including from the pathological side. It was a huge learning experience. Everybody had an autopsy who died in the hospital in those days. That's all lost, unfortunately. And I've met many pathologists who are actually secretly surgeons who got hooked and never left pathology. I was almost one of them. And then I had 3 years of training in my mother house, I call it, the St. Elizabeth house. And I know that Walter, if he got up early, he might be listening right now. And Dr. Korman, the chef at the time, in a big hospital, we would operate ideally 5 days a week, and I got the skills how to care, how to take care of patients, and really taught there, and I've never lost contact to this St. Elizabeth house until today. I also got involved in hospice. Heinrich Pera was the one who founded the hospice at the time, and also palliative surgery. At the end of medical school, I was able to go for 4 months to America. I think I had sent 50 letters and got 2 responses, so I took them both. If you have a choice, take both. And I went to Mercator Hospital in Madison 2 months, and to Little Rock. So when I was doing this registrar training, which was exciting, I was missing research. And in a Catholic hospital, which is not university, you are not really a university person. You cannot even go to the library. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So I called my friend from Switzerland, Simon Hauser, who had given blood when I was a student there. I had given blood not to save the world, but I was just hungry. I had no money, and so I got $10 per blood giving. And so he said, well, yeah, I connected with Martin, and Martin might be listening to this as well. And Martin said, okay, let's talk. And I said, okay, let's talk. And he said, yeah, let's talk, come over. I said, well, I'm in Germany. And he said, I know, come over. So I took a flight, and I flew over for 5 days, and he sent me around to his mates, and then he came back. I stayed with him, and he said, okay, I take you, but I have no money. And so, fine, I said, I have no money either. And we agreed on this one, and then it took a year. And that's what I'm saying. You really have to be half crazy, because my wife will remember that I spent almost 6 months or a year just to write this application. Some of them were declined. Eventually I went through the letter and got from the Mildred Scheel Foundation and the Deutschen Akademischen Austauschdienst, and later on from the NIH, a 3-year fellowship in research with Martin. And you see how strong he is looking in those days. I was his first postdoc. I think he tested me out. He gave me a pager on Sunday when I arrived on the airport in Little Rock, Arkansas. So Little Rock, Arkansas is like Invercargill. People feel very sorry when you tell them you're from Little Rock, Arkansas. And he gave me a pager, and the pager went off the same evening, and it never stopped going off, really. So there wasn't much of holiday, there wasn't much of Christmas or anything, but I would say it was the most intense, amazing 3 years of research I was able to get, and I'm very grateful. Here is with my daughter. At the time she was 5, Cora, and we also have a son who is an Archie now, who was born there, and we had good times, and he was more than a boss, became a very good friend. So my topic was radiation enteropathy. Radiation enteropathy, we need to study it. It's hard to study this in humans. It's highly relevant. If you talk to radiation oncologists, they might think that doesn't really exist because they don't see it. Like surgeons never have complications, of course. But it exists, and it's quite prevalent. The more we radiate, the more side effects we will see. And we needed a model that allows us to replicate these injuries to the small bowel, which Martin already had established. That's an X-ray of a human who has a radiation enteropathy, and you can see this patient is not only suffering, but also very difficult to operate. And I found this picture here that probably amplifies this. And you see this in the testimony from Tranette Ledford. Martin provided me this video that you can look up on the internet. That pelvic radiation disease is not even acknowledged until today as much as it should be. So that was my research project in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is here. And I need to ask you if you know who this was here. Anybody? And we have Marilyn Monroe put. We're just 2 little girls from Little Rock. That's how people got to know. He is from Hope, Bill Clinton, and of course you have cotton fields, Indian summer, and bluegrass music. Sometimes we're sad, just like the winter. Sometimes we wonder what will become. You can imagine I felt like coming home when I went to Invercargill, but I'm getting there. So that's the animal model. So we could radiate rats without reoperating them as often as we wanted. And I spent most of my 3 years in the lab, and I'm not going into too much detail about the research. But you see that depending, we have early and late radiation injury. We looked at a high number of different cytokines. TGF-beta alpha 1, of course, is the dominant one, as you can see here. And you see that the more we radiate different fractionation schedules of 4.2 Cray over 12 days or 5.6 Cray over 9 days, you get a different kind of TGF-beta expression, which was then with the immune image was measured and quantified, and you see if you would take a patient, you see the same kind of TGF-beta expression in this patient. And I'm not going again in the details, but we have got a huge number of data, and once we looked on the protein level, we looked then further on the DNA level, as you see here with RT-PCR and in situ hybridization. We modified the model by creating, putting either a pump in and modify the injury to the groin where the small bowel was, or even created a stoma in rats, which amazingly worked nicely. As you can see here, we could modify, and I found my old textbooks lately after we moved houses, and I put it up here. So altogether, more than 600 male rats were operated, various single and fractionation regimens were tested, early and late intestinal rotation injury was studied, endpoints you see here, and then new stoma models were developed, which cost 3 years and gave me a lot of data, more than 13 publications, some of them published in the American Journal of Surgery, Pathology, Radiotherapy, and Blood and Carcinogenesis. And Martin wanted me to stay, so at night from 10 to 2 in the morning, and Sabine will remember I studied for the American boards, USMLE 1 and 2. And in order to improve my speaking skills, I went to Toastmaster International, which was amazing. I must say it really helped a lot. And then the next 9 years I spent in Jena. At the time, I was really happy there, but since I was not really home, we had now 2 kids, 2 more were underway. We decided, or as was decided, we go back. And we started all over again, first in Halle, but then I was called to get a spot in Jena. And that's in Thuringia here. The university was founded 1558, an amazing city surrounded by mountains. I finished my German habilitation in 2002, and then my subspecialty in surgical fellowship in visceral, gastrointestinal, colorectal surgery and oncology. I spent my nights and days in the lab afterwards. I supervised PhD students, 7 of them at the time. And in those days, we had to give frontal lectures, not small groups. So we had 200 students twice a week, and we would teach them the basics in surgery, basic surgery and also special surgery. So they came into your clinical attachment already well equipped with an understanding what we were going to do. Nowadays, that's not the case anymore, unfortunately. And I was on boards. And what you do in those days, by the way, at the time, we were both working full time, and we had, I found this, I took this yesterday, this picture, or last week, so it's actually teaching, and in those days I had 4 kids, and I didn't see many of them, or much of them, and after, by the way, after 9 years, we decided we need a break. In those days, since you don't spend time in the lab anymore, your research changes in a way. You network, you collaborate, which is very difficult in Inaugural. And these were carcinogenesis studies or cell culture studies we contributed, or clinical studies when we followed up our patients. And we had a high volume university department with 3 operating theaters every day and the liver transplant unit. So that's where my kids went to school, and when the twins were 9 and Paul was 11, we decided we go away for a year. I had a phone call at the time with Mari Pfeiffer. The other one was Keith, the manager, and the German surgeon happened to be there as well, and then they asked me on the phone, why do you want to come to Inaugural? And I said, I just saw the movie, The Fastest Indian, I know where you are. I looked up fly fishing, I must say, and yes, I saw what the Rolling Stones have said about Inaugural, and he said, yeah, why don't you come? So that's how we ended up, and it was exactly like I thought. The weather, the wind was coming from the side, and I thought, what have I been doing here? 1 year, that's it. Again, we don't wear shoes in our hospital, which is quite modern. We take them off, and that's okay. And I thought, I'm now really a Southlander when my son went swimming with me and didn't take his towel off, and we were renting a movie in South City and just walked into the video store. Interestingly, everybody else looked like him as well at the time. So that was in Inaugural. And that were the Rolling Stones. I'm not repeating what is still in A Lonely Planet, but I found another interesting quotation about Dunedin, because they also gave a concert, made Aberdeen seems like Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure that makes every Southlander feel good now. You come to the airport, and here that's what you see. Dreams are possible because of Herbert James Monroe, who he was already 68 when he went to the Salt Lakes, really to Bonneville to test his Indian. And one of the records in 1,000 cubic centimeter is still unbroken until today. And as you see, that was a movie, 2006, that came out, and they are still racing today on the Oreti beach. In February nowadays, not everybody succeeds, as you can see here. But in Inaugural, to see just 2 slides, now we have a direct flight to Auckland. I mean, my kids went through James Hargest, and there was an evening with previous alumni, and 6 of them were Olympic champions, just went through James Hargest. I have not met a single one in Germany when I was there before. And then the really nice velodrome, and that's just a few examples. A $1 billion aquaculture possibly coming up. We have the data center possibly coming. We have something happened in Bluff, and you can all visit our $200 million city mall, which is not always full of people, but it's getting there. The next thing will be the $60 million museum. With the Tuatara that you can see will have a new home in the Tuatara enclosure. But this is just the future possibly of Southland. You have to really love the countryside. What is most amazing are the people. And in those days, we would all go as a hospital to the city, we serve to city. In a way, COVID has killed this, but the people make this place so special. And I must say, I have not regretted a single day since we came to Inaugural, and it was 16 years ago. Now, how is it like to come from a big center to a small hospital, which was modern, 2004? Of course, it was built too small, and it doesn't matter who is here being played, either national or labor. It was probably both of them who built it too small. And now we are struggling with not enough theater capacity and ED capacity. But how is this like? You come from an anonymous center in a city where everybody knows everybody. There are no secrets, absolutely no secrets anymore. And you have to face your surgery the next day in a supermarket. And if it's hemorrhoids, you don't want to see your patient after your surgery for hemorrhoids, but you have to. And that makes it completely different. And only people who have worked in smaller centers know how vulnerable you are actually are in a smaller center, and you might actually become very scared at times with what you are doing. In this article, published 2017, it says, those of us who have chosen to practice in rural areas will tell you that the life of a rural surgeon can be of high pressure and professional isolation. Now, we don't have, nobody can sue each other here, so there's a no-fault policy with ACC. However, the data show clearly, and I would think that most surgeons agree with me, and not surgeons, many GPs nowadays who have to face this, and anesthetists, and everybody who is actually treating patients, that there is a kind of defensive medical medicine happening here, because you might end up like in the medieval times in the newspaper on the title page with your face not looking really sexy anymore, because it's your reputational risk. You are completely at your end if this happens to you in a small community. The only thing you can do, you walk away. So there's a fear of complaint, and why would you then take a risk? Why would you operate someone who maybe will be just fine the next day? You're tempted to sit on these patients, and I must say, I might do this. Of course, sometimes it's a better choice, but there is a philosophy that is everywhere, and I will quote Rudolf Nissen again, who said, essentially, I believe that more misfortune arises through omission or hesitation in urgent surgery than through operative complications. So we have to shoulder our complications and the responsibility as surgeons, and hopefully don't get unnecessary attacked and then shy away from taking any risk, because not operating someone who urgently needs surgery does not help your patient at all. It might help you getting away from a lawsuit or an HDC complaint. And I was looking into palliative surgery. We published also a book chapter, and this article on palliative surgery and palliative care and surgery is also an example. When would you go and operate, and who would take the risk? And And it was quite exciting. In Invercargill and Southland, we have so weird cases. You could also publish lots of case reports, which doesn't get you into a professorial position because it doesn't count really, but it's very exciting and we can all learn from this. Nevertheless, that's my bread and butter in Invercargill. The movie doesn't work. That's a Nissen-Fan duplication. We are still doing the same way, more or less, right, Mark? Like Nissen or Toupet. Mark is into Toupet, which is almost like a Nissen, but not. And transanal endoscopic merge surgery, we do adenectomies, we do the hernias either open or laparoscopically, as you can see here. And colon cancer, of course, as well. What we have in Invercargill, and that's why we are able to do this, and I must say for the last 16 years, I have seen this again and again, is extremely amazing support from the Dunedin University and the surgical department, and some of my colleagues are sitting here tonight who are very influential in doing this, and I would like to thank you all for supporting us in these times when we had to tackle complicated cases. So a strong collaboration with academic institutions is crucial, and mentoring to continue doing what we have been doing laparoscopically. Now, how do you become a laparoscopic surgeon? Of course, research is everything, and sure enough, someone looked into this. Published in the Annals of Surgery, Archives of Surgery 2007, and they found that video game skills and past video game experience are significant predictors of demonstrated laparoscopic kills. And here we have research. They also found that if you play longer than an hour, you don't get into med school. 2012, I owe it to Gordon Weil, who has been the Associate Dean in Southland for 6 years, and the Dean at the time, Dr. John Adams, to ask me whether I would like to take over this position. At the time, we continued to publish, you know, like weird adrenalomas, 14 centimeter long, or rare cysts. But as Joe mentioned, for the next 10 years, I would spend 3 days a month in Dunedin, drive up and sit on the table, because I felt that you need to communicate and connect with your colleagues, because otherwise you speak not the same language, and you wonder why nothing happens and why there's such a misunderstanding, why Invercargill might feel like there's the poor cousin all the time and the other way around. And in order to talk and invite our colleagues to Invercargill to show what's happening, what potential is there, and vice versa, there is a feeling on both sides that can be sometimes arrogance that doesn't help for working together. And I think it was crucial to get to know each other in teaching, and we had funding at the time. We started new research projects. We collaborated with Dunedin and other cities, and some of us would give lectures in Dunedin. So we grew together. I thought in 2015 there was a promotion to clinical associate professor. In 2015, we also started to do staff development workshops, because in Invercargill we also have been working and still do working in silos. And you see here who would be coming down to Invercargill, Rob Walker and Tim Wilkinson. And the talk I was giving at the time to the DHB, because we also invited our managers, that was Carol Hitley at the time, was excellent patient care, teaching and research belong together. From their perspective, it would possibly be mainly KPIs in patient care and not research and teaching. And sure enough, of course she didn't come, but she gave a video clip and promised that it belongs together. That was a good start, at least. And we had the Teach the Teachers meeting. Speakers from the University of Dunedin and Christchurch also came. And as you can see here in the audience, it's not just for doctors, it's also not just for medical students. It's our whole team consists of allied health and nurses who are also speakers, as you can see here, on the same eye level, which makes this place so special. And then 2018, I know Michael was there. We had most of the head of departments from Dunedin coming to our research symposium, as you can see here. We had statistics, we had gastroenterology, We had pathology, but we also had our clinicians from Inaugural giving talks on the same eye level about their research topics. And we connected, I thought, very nicely. The topic was there's no innovation without research and no progress without innovation. That was mainly directed at the exec, SDHB at the time. And you see here that Jane Wilson, who gave an amazing talk on holistic healthcare, more than just KPIs, incorporating patients' care, teaching, and research. And you see Barry Taylor, you see the discussion with management, with clinicians, with students, with the SIT, and Barry Taylor giving a talk about the role of Southland. Here we had invited the GPs and connected, and the talk would be, what can we manage at home? That would the consultant ask, or what the GP would ask, what does a GP want from a well-functioning hospital? And suddenly we would talk to each other, and things that were not discussed in the past suddenly came out. And then 2018 we started our first public lecture. Now public lecture is not so easy to give a talk really for maybe an academic or clinician, because it's not about teaching them, it's actually more about us listening to them, having an ear on the ground. And that was the first one. The guest speaker was Chris and myself, and here's Paul Winter, who has been supporting us for many, many years voluntarily, and we had no idea who would be coming. We had absolutely no idea. That was the first public lecture. It could be just 2 or 3 people, and sure enough, we had a full house, and Chris, as he does, took a selfie and put it on Facebook the same night. Now, the public lecture is, if you cannot explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. It's a teaching tool also for us clinicians. It's an opportunity to go out and listen what the public would like to know. We had discussions that were hot and exciting, but we also tried to learn or relearn how to discuss things that are really difficult in a cultivated and non-judgmental way. We might have lost sometimes this ability, but we would tackle different topics, as you see here. Knee surgery from the orthopedic surgeons, prostate management, breast cancer, gynae, and here you see one of our urologists talking about screening. And the 2 people is Nicola Branson and Paul Winter, who have been, and Josh Hodson, who have been constantly volunteering and preparing this in the evening out of passion. And then we thought we are ready to tackle something really hot, which was mental health. As you know, Mahatma Gandhi said you can't lead a life without suffering, and also euthanasia. And in order to make it not judgmental, we had a lawyer and philosopher and palliative medicine doctor, and we did not need security on this evening. And it was a hot discussion. Interestingly, we can see now the success of this legislation. At the time, we were asking the audience, because we had to send 100 people away. We had 5,600 people watching it live. It's still on the hospice website. You are here, you are interested in euthanasia, you're passionate, I'm sure you are. Who has read the legislation? And guess who has read the legislation? Nobody. And so I wonder whether these lectures should have happened much more in the country and allow us, not judgmental, to actually get a better understanding what we are actually voting for. And then I read this article from Professor Descorman, previous dean of the medical school in Auckland, about 82 years of ineffectual reforms and what can be done about. And we had this lecture just a while ago, and the take-home message was probably that we should stop looking at an NHS which is not anymore the envy of the world, maybe has been many years ago, but look at other countries like Scandinavia or Europe who might have a system that works better. We don't have the answer for this, but at least we were able to discuss this topic, and we had, by the way, both members of the parties in the audience. And the point was that this should actually be a bipartisan approach. It doesn't help to blame the other party now and not before either. And I hope it was listened to. 2014 was primarily run by Paul Winter and the SIT. We had our medical students connect with our nursing students in allied health lately. We didn't know it has a name at the time, IPE. Now it's, of course, big. but in those days we just did it. We have one of the most modern simulation labs, that's Paul Winter on the upper level, and these are some feedbacks from attachments who were in surgery or in orthopedics or in OBGYN or in ED or anesthetics. Now, if you get this feedback from your students, that keeps you on your toes. So it's amazing for us and a privilege to have these students. And I think we all thrive when we have them because, again, they keep us on our toes. Here you see Professors Marilyn Hibner and Barry Taylor, Wes Jenkins, and Conway Powell and Willow McDonald, Madge Storm. They all put their heart into a project that suddenly happened. So dreams are possible in Invercargill and in New Zealand, as you can see here.
Wilkinson's in the middle. Wilkinson!
And we are now turning New Zealand into a football nation. And we have now an education center which is one of the most modern ones, where our students come and can study all night 24/7, but not the students, also the staff from the hospital, because we moved the library into this building and they connect over there. And when the education and research center, which on the upper level cost probably 3.5 million, and the university put 1.5 million into the lower level, we had everybody coming to celebrate the opening, as you can see here with Reuten, Dr. Reuten Somerville at the time, the chancellor. It was quite an event, even from Wellington. In those days, I want to make the point that it's difficult to network in a smaller center. It was possible, this one, for example, with Stephen Robertson, but he also published interesting cases, the latest one with Mavis, who is also here tonight, thank you. And I also looked into book chapters I was asked to write on surgical oncology. These are some of the ongoing research projects right now. And as an academic, you are not only anymore sitting on the bench and actually doing the immunohistochemistry, and I have done thousands of those. You try to facilitate this kind of research. So we have a few papers in the pipeline. You see the projects written down, obesity-induced immune dysfunction, the study that John Woodfield, who is also in the audience tonight, has inaugurated. We try to join by randomizing patients into different arms in order to condition them for their colorectal surgery. And then the private hospital, Southern Cross, has been the first hospital who introduced or included patients from the private hospital into a study of docs who are able to detect bowel cancer in patients' urine. If you compare this with our FOBT, which has a sensitivity and specificity of maybe less than 90%, and certainly you have up to 15% false negatives, so you have no bleeding but a cancer, and it's not picked up, can be even higher, and up to 50 false positive as well, which means you get an endoscopy for no reason. This is a specificity and sensitivity of up to 100%. Pauline Blumfeld is in charge in Moskil, and she sent me this little clip that shows you this exciting, possibly future tool we might have in our armamentarium. That was a positive sample. And the last part of my talk is I had a chance and was invited to work in the Pacific. That is a talk for itself. I need to get you in the right mood for this. Landing, but it was not really an airport. Now the point I want to make here, and I have made it in another talk I gave at the Global Health Conference, is it's amazing to be able to do this. In my case, in Honiara, Solomon Islands, in Kirakira, in Makira, and also Solomon Islands, in Suva, in Fiji, and also in Samoa. But the more I have done it, the less I was convinced that it might be the right thing to do, possibly. And I think these are the things that I have taken out so far, that we should not go in and operate complex patients and go out again and leave the situation as it is and was before. We need to start to stop, to look, to listen, and then try to understand. empower the local organizations, have long-term commitment, not just a one-time off, and certainly not pursue an altruistic voluntarism, as it is called. So I don't have the solution. I'm excited to invite it, but that means as a surgeon I would probably not even operate. I would not even scrub in. I would be just there. And I would want that the registrar, this is Denton here, who was my registrar in Kira, knows how to do this procedure at the end of the week by himself, and I never need to come back. And the same for other procedures. Very complicated, but it's an amazing, possibly, activity for the future. May I summarize my talk? If we knew what we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? I don't know whether was it the summary. Let me see. Yeah, that's the summary. Success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm, just for the young ones here, if they want to pursue this. You need to start early as possible. You need to network, that's part of the game. You try to learn and do bench work. Try to understand the language of the laboratory. Try to do stinnings yourself, animal experiments, whatever, even molecular biology, which is probably challenging for a surgeon, you would think. Try to present and publish, put yourself out. But you can only really do this, and that's my philosophy, if you are in your own core skills, as a gastroenterologist or anesthetist or surgeon, or a GP, that you are good in what you are doing, that your patients come to you and trust you, not because you give a talk here with a slight German accent, but because they trust you because you are good or solid in your skills, and that's very challenging. Be curious and adventurous, and stay true to the basic principles. And again, I would like to quote Rudolf Nissen again one more time, and that's a really important quote for me. Stay true to the basic principles that have advanced medicine for centuries, educating young physicians and nurses, preserving academic freedom, and I repeat it again, preserving academic freedom, which is really, really important, respecting human dignity and guiding medical practice by scientific evidence. This has not changed, and it looks like that we are losing this a little bit in our academic freedom. My personal opinion is when you have debts, the government should support universities to, you cannot make, and we talked about this yesterday, Joe, you cannot make teaching more efficient by kicking out lecturers. You have to actually invest in the brain power of this country, and the universities are the leading institutions. I would like to thank you all for coming here, and who is still awake on the computers, but I would particularly think, and this is just not everybody, of course, it's my father Klaus and my father-in-law Dieter, Professorial, who taught me the basics, not the autopsies in those days, but how to do a proper experiment and finish it and present it. My clinical teachers, Dr. Gerhard Kormann and Walter Asperger, who became the head of the department in the Catholic St. Elizabeth Hospital Halle, who taught me so many things, not just the surgical skills, but also ethics. Also Heinrich Pera, who was the founder of the hospice, and he became a nurse just to understand hospice. He also was the one who married us and baptized my daughter and buried my father-in-law. And then at the University of Jena was a very intense time. I had 3 teachers, all of them amazing surgeons, clinical surgeons in different ways of operating. One was a vascular surgeon, different way. André would know, complete different approach, going down to the vessel with no anxiety. The other one was using more blunt dissection. And the other one was a very experienced liver transplant surgeon. So Professor Martin Hauer-Jensen, of course, who gave me the most intense and amazing 3 years in a high-powered experimental laboratory research. He taught me so many things, and he also gave me a lot of friendship. And my German colleagues and friends, including Ulrich, Thilo, Winfried, Steffen, Dorothy, and Michael Talbot, who is actually Kiwi in Sydney. And I would like to extend my gratitude also to my Southland and Dunedin colleagues, and there are just some of them, including Mark, and Frank Frisell, and John McCall, and Ian Bissett, and Sarah Young, and Stephen Robertson, Barry Taylor, Chris Jackson, Murray Pfeiffer, John Adams, Michael Schultz, Joe Baxter, and many, many others. I'm also grateful to the Southland Medical Foundation, who might listen tonight, who have helped us over the first funding way to get a senior research fellow. We have now the second one, Dr. Silke Neumann, who is crucial for keeping all the different research projects running. We would not be able to survive without her. We have Carrie and Aniden. And of course, the volunteers and this Matt Storm and Paul Winter and Nicola and particularly Josh Hossen only came at night just volunteering, and many others to support our public lectures. And then friends and colleagues and nurses and doctors and allied health and even managers who are amazing in Southland. And one is here, Patty. Patty came up just to listen, and I really appreciate this. And that is how we get things done, by respecting each other and listening to each other. But that wouldn't happen, of course, without my 4 kids. One is here, the others are listening. You see they are flying on their own now. Most of them, they still come home and empty the freezer, by the way, all of them. And the one who's keeping this together is my wife Sabine. Only without her, I wouldn't be here. So I cannot say more about this, but she keeps us together, and I would have failed many times in life, I think, and this is usually the case with many men who show up and give talks. There's always some stronger behind who make this happen. Now, my last slide. The Amish call it Gelassenheit, they call it yieldedness or submission to, obviously, God for the Amish. I was able to talk to them in Lancaster and in Ohio when I did my sabbatical there. They still speak the same language, looks like Old Swabian, a little bit funny, but I could talk to them. And that's my take-home message. I want to learn how to let go a little bit and get some Gelassenheit, to get things done, to yield things. And therefore I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Let go. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ngā mihi nui, Konrad. Mark Thompson Fawcett's my name. I'm here representing the Department of Surgical Sciences in the university, but also as a clinician. Konrad is in the same southern Te Whatu Ora region as a GI general surgeon, so we're all colleagues together working on the clinical side as well as the academic side. So Konrad, I think, has demonstrated very clearly in his lecture the attributes that have brought him to be promoted to professor. He has an outstanding energy. He thrives on challenges, and he showed some examples of the Southern Learning and Research Centre, which he was an outstanding driver behind. And well, I was just down there last week when we had a teaching and education day for colorectal surgeons, and it's a fantastic facility. So that, I guess, Konrad has not only done his own research, but he's contributed hugely to making a research environment for others, and he takes students and surgical trainees on the journey with him. He has curiosity, as you've seen in his talk, and that sparks his thinking and his ideas, and he pursues them. He doesn't take no for an answer very easily if he's really passionate about something, and I think we've all experienced that, and I've especially seen that in the medical school when he's fighting for Southland to get their things across the line, their activities across the line, and the achievements with what they've done down there in developing a thriving centre is outstanding, and I'm humbled by their research days where the presentations are there and the research is on display. And he's passionate about teaching, and the students every year vote for the best teachers, and he's a multi-award winner in that area. So well done for your teaching as well as all your other schools, Konrad. You've generations of medical students sing your praises. And at the pinnacle of all Konrad does, he still, I think, aspires to deliver excellence and does in the operating room. It's that the drama of the operating theatre and achieving well there that I think is the pinnacle of what he does, and he does that well and with excellence. So Konrad, thank you so much for your excellently prepared lecture tonight, and how you, I don't know how you do all those little videos that you sort of put in and click and they go and just one bit goes and not the rest does. Very smoothly done. So thank you very much for that and taking us on your journey and sharing that journey with us, which has been outstanding. So I've got a presentation for you now, and don't get too excited about the capital value of this, but it's hugely symbolic and has huge value in terms of representing what you've achieved. So congratulations and thank you again.
Tēnā koutou. I'm Trish Priest. I'm the Acting Pro-Vice Chancellor of Health Sciences, which is the division of the university in which the Dunedin School of Medicine and the Department of Surgery and Konrad find themselves. So I have a very brief thing to say, you'll be pleased to know. I want to just say how much I always enjoy IPLs and how much I've enjoyed yours, Konrad. You always learn really interesting things about your colleagues and other things. Some really excellent quotes there that I might look up and come back to at some point, and learning about some of those people. So thank you so much. It was impressive and inspiring, and it's so good to learn about your journey. And my actual reason for being here is to invite everyone to join Konrad at the staff club for refreshments and further celebration, and to thank him one last time.
Thank you very much.
Well done, well done.